Hey, what's up folks? This is Keith and you're watching Barbara's Auto Help. Today I've got my '07 Ford Edge here with a 3.5 liter in it, and I'm going to be going over the spark plug replacement. Let's go ahead and get into it. The first thing I'm going to do is disconnect my negative battery clamp. That's a 10 millimeter on there. I'm going to remove it, and then I'm going to put a rag over that post to prevent accidental contact. There we go. We got our rag on there and we're disconnected. Alright, next thing we're going to do is remove our air filter housing, the upper portion of it, and the intake duct here. And just go ahead and disconnect your mass airflow sensor. Just like that. We had this little red tang. We had to pop that out first, and then press this down while we pull off that connector there. Take that loose right there. Then we got over here, got this little breather tube right here. I'm going to go ahead and disconnect it. See this little white tang right there? We're pulling it back like that. And we're pulling that off of that nipple there. That releases it from that rib. And then we've got this hose clamp right here. See where the snorkel goes to the throttle body right there? We're going to unscrew that, and then we're going to pull the whole thing off. And by the way, it's easiest to get to that hose clamp through here. You see the head of that hose clamp right there. Just stick your hand through that hole right there with a little flat blade screwdriver and unscrew it. Alright, we're just going to reach around through here, grab that snorkel, and pull it off of the throttle body, just like that. Just pull this up like that, slide those tangs out of those receptacles there. And then we got this little hose right here. We'll need to disconnect that from the tube. Just pull this whole thing up like this and set it off to the side. Okay, so now we need to get some of this wiring out of the way. I'm going to start out by snipping this zip tie right here and that zip tie right there. We got that completed. Now let's go ahead and disconnect our purge valve. Just pushing down on that while I'm pulling. And let's disconnect our PCM. Just pulling back on that like that. Just grabbing this and just pulling straight forward right there, that little lever, if you will. Let's get this last one right here too. Just pull that lever straight forward. Just set this off to the side. Disconnect our throttle body. Pull up on that red tang right there. Push in on our lock. Pull out on that connector. Now we have a bolt here. Also got a bolt there. And not there, but there and there. Also, there are two bolts on this end, one right there, and then one up underneath here. And then you got a bolt back yonder there. There's an 8 millimeter head on it. You have to unscrew that, take it out all the way. And then there's another bolt right up underneath the throttle body right there. It's also got an 8 millimeter head on it too. Go ahead and take that out also. And we're just going to pry this harness up right there so that we can access that other bolt up underneath. And there we go. Now it's exposed. So I'm going to go ahead and take those loose and take the other two bolts that I told you about out, and then we're going to proceed to remove it. And by the way, I found for the bolt back yonder and up underneath the throttle body a nice long 1/4" drive extension with a universal socket and an 8 millimeter works pretty well. So I have all the bolts loose. That bolt back there, which you can't see right now, it's dark, kind of sticks into the intake there and doesn't come out. But these other bolts here and also that one, I went ahead and removed and put them in a safe spot out of the way. And one other thing to mention too, there is a PCV hose back here. You see it right there. And I can't really show you too much on camera, but it pulls right off of the back of the valve cover there. And I'll explain more once I get the intake out. And we're just going to jump forward a little bit here, guys, but that's that PCV tube I was telling you about. It just pulls right off of the PCV valve. And also there is an electrical connector that connects right here. You need to disconnect that too in order to get the upper intake off, but that's the PCV valve right there, and then that's the electrical connector. So you'll need to disconnect both of those, and as said, you just pull right up on that hose right there. Give it a little bit of a twist while you're doing it, and this hose will come right off of that PCV valve right there. Go ahead and remove these also from the upper intake plenum. It got these little Christmas tree rivets right here that sit right down in those holes there. You can just use your trim tool like you saw earlier to get that off, or a pair of dikes or something. You want to break the seal, which I've already done, and it can be a little bit of a difficult task there, but go ahead and break the seal of this upper intake plenum to the lower intake plenum. Once that's broken, you can then pull your intake back just a little bit. Whenever you pull it forward like that, you'll notice you have a little bit of resistance, and that's because you have two more hoses back here, and you need to pull it forward just a bit so that you can get at them. One, you got your brake booster hose right there. The other hose you got is your evap purge tube right there with the yellow tang on it. So we've got to remove those. Now this evap purge tube here, it's going to go right through here, and I know this quality is kind of stinky, but we're going to push in on that tang, and I'll show you better once I get it out. And once you push in on that tang, we pull the hose right off. So this is it right here. I've got it off, and what I did is I pushed in on this and it unlocked it. See how that works inside there? So that's how you get that off there. Now as for the brake booster hose there, we're going to use a pair of vice grips to squeeze that hose clamp together, slide the hose clamp back, and then wiggle the hose off of the intake. I'm going to go around through the back side here with my vice grips in order to get up there to that hose clamp, like so. And I'm also going to go ahead and remove my evap purge valve here, and I'm going to take this line off here. This is the delivery line. I'm going to squeeze these two tangs together and push in on them and push them down like so. Pull that out the back there. Let's go ahead and pull that off. Now we're just going to take and push this tang towards the front, this one right here, and then we're going to slide it to the right and just remove it. Okay, now we're really, for real, ready to take our upper intake plenum off. So I'm just going to pull this up and just slide it right out and kind of go, kind of twist it counterclockwise just a bit while you're coming out this way. Okay, so we got our upper intake plenum off, and just a word of caution for you guys. It's super easy to drop things down in those intake ports. So even in the process of getting that upper intake plenum off, you got to be on guard and make sure nothing falls down in those ports there. Just be real careful. And I'm going to go ahead and put a blanket right over the top of that so that I don't accidentally in the future drop something down in there. So there we go. I got it blocked off pretty good there. Let's go ahead and remove our PCV breather tube. Just push that in like that. See that? Just like that. Pull it right off, and we're going to start out by disconnecting this coil right here, and you just push down on that little red lock right there, push in on this locking thing, pull out on the connector like that. Then we're going to unbolt it, just pull straight up on the coil like so, and we're going to do that with the rest of them. So the remaining 5, the 2 up here and then 3 back there, go ahead and remove those 2. I'm not going to make you watch me remove those. It's pretty redundant. Now at this point here, guys, you can go ahead and take out your spark plugs. I've got a 3/8 drive ratchet here with a 12-inch extension and then a 5/8 spark plug socket. Just going to put it right down onto that spark plug right there and take it out counterclockwise. And I broke this loose off camera. We're just going counterclockwise there. You don't want to be so sloppy like I am. Kind of keep it all straight. All right, once it's broken free pretty well there, you then take it out the rest of the way by hand. Pull it right out like that. There we go. And that bad mamma jamma is pretty well worn out. I bet you that these are the original spark plugs. Now for the spark plugs back here on the back head, you may want to just use something like a 6-inch extension to get those spark plugs out, because there's not that much clearance between the wiper cowl and the spark plug tubes. Alright, to put the new spark plugs in, it's basically reverse procedure. Put your new spark plug in your socket there, and if it is a true spark plug socket, the socket should hold the spark plug inside of it. I like to start mine by hand because it's very easy to cross thread them, and if you start them by hand, there's less of a chance of you doing that. So I run them all the way down by hand first, and then I torque them down. Okay, so off camera, I went ahead and used my 3/8 drive ratchet with my extension, a spark plug socket, and I torqued down that spark plug. I can't hold the camera and torque it down at the same time, so that's why I didn't show you that. Now, I'm not going to actually run you through the rest of them. It's the same procedure for the rest of your spark plugs, even the ones back there. Just use a shorter extension on the ones in the back there. Now, once you got your spark plug back in, you can then go ahead and put your ignition coil back on. It just slides right back over that spark plug there. Be sure to put your bolt back in, torque it down to specification, then reconnect your electrical connector. You're going to push it up until it snaps into place. Once it snaps into place, go ahead and push your red locking clip back up there. Make sure it locks into place, and then give it a little tug. Make sure it's secure. Now, that's the same for the remaining 5 ignition coils. Go ahead and put the remaining 5 ignition coils on in the same manner, and then proceed. Well, all right, we're getting close. It's time to put the intake manifold back on. Now, before you do that, you want to go ahead and clean up the mating surface right here where the intake manifold sits. And usually all you need for this is a rag soaked with brake clean. Just wipe it down real good, and that should do the trick. Now, as far as the seal on this intake manifold, the gasket here, I've reused a bunch of these and I've not had any problems with it yet. However, if you suspect you may need to replace your gaskets, or you're afraid that you might have a leak afterwards, go ahead and replace them. You know, you got it out already. I don't mind taking it back apart if I do have a vacuum leak. And like I said, I've reused a bunch of these before, and I've not had a problem. So I'm going to reuse mine and stick it back on there. Just make sure it's nice and soft and it's pliable. All right. Now, the installation of this intake manifold is reverse procedure. I'm going to put it in just like I took it out, just reverse or opposite of that. I'm going to go in kind of sideways like this, and then bring it in like that and push it down. Now, do note, you got to reconnect things back here that plug into the back of the intake manifold. This connector right here goes to the connector on the back of the intake manifold where the PCV breather or PCV tube goes to. So be sure to reconnect that. And also, while you're at it, go ahead and hook up your brake booster hose and position it into place with the hose clamp secured on the end there, so you don't have any vacuum leaks. And also, as you know, the PCV hose has to go down over the top of the PCV valve as you're putting the intake manifold back into position. All right, we got our intake manifold into place there, and I do have my brake booster hose hooked up in the back. You can't see it, but it is hooked up and the hose clamp is pushed up on it. The PCV tube, I'll run you back there. I've got it reconnected down on the bottom of the PCV valve. I've also got the electrical connector connected on the back of the intake. Now, something to be careful about when you're positioning this intake manifold into place, make sure that your gaskets didn't pop out. And what you can do is you can just lift this up a bit, just fill up underneath it with your fingers and make sure that that gasket is still in place on all 6 tubes there. So once that's good, go ahead and put your intake manifold back into place there. And then we're going to put our bolts in and we're going to torque them down. And the way I'm going to torque mine down is I'm going to start with that one, work over to this one, go to this one, that one, and then that one. Now hold up, I almost forgot about something. Now I've got the bolts on the bottom of the intake manifold ran down by hand. They are threaded in, but don't forget, you got that bolt right back there. Go ahead and get that started too before you get too froggy torquing those down. And then also you got the bolt that goes right there also. Go ahead and get that started by hand before you torque these down. Now once you got those started on the back there, torque these down in the sequence that I discussed earlier, or the sequence that's in your repair manual. So once you got this part torqued down, go ahead and tighten that bolt up and then that bolt. Okay, so now I got my intake manifold torqued down. All the bolts on the bottom here were torqued down, plus the one in the back and the one down there. And I went ahead and took the liberty of reconnecting my harness push rivets here. And you can see you got 3 of them that go into the intake manifold, and also ran my coolant line on the top part here. I had that taken out of those earlier, so I put them back in. And I also reconnected the throttle body and locked it into place there. And then the evap purge valve, I went ahead and put that back into place. It just slides right back on that receptacle. Reconnected the hose here. Now once the hose was put on, I had to push this clip back into place to lock it in. And I even reconnected this line where it went back to the intake manifold, and that clip right there, when you push it in, it locks into place on its own, so you shouldn't have to manipulate that. Just push the whole line back on the nipple back there and it'll lock in. And now I got my air filter, air inlet and air filter box put back in, and I've got it, the tangs in place there on the back half, and the snaps are snapped back in. The mass airflow sensor is reconnected, and the red locking tang on the bottom is pushed in. And you can see right here that this is supposed to be electrical tape to this. I'll fix that later on, but that should be attached to the top side of the air filter box there. And don't forget, back here you have your hose clamp. You have your hose clamp right there that needs to be tightened up where that air duct meets the throttle body. So go ahead and tighten that up too. And then we have our PCV breather tube. It goes in place like this. It just snaps right into place right here. Give it a tug, make sure it's in all the way. And then the bottom part, or in this part, goes on the air duct right there. Snap it into place, give it a tug, make sure it's in there secure. And don't forget this wire harness that goes on the right side of the intake manifold. There is a Christmas tree rivet that goes up into that receptacle right there. Go ahead and put it back into place, push it in. And then this wire right here, remember it was zip tied up to the evap purge valve. You can go ahead and zip tie that back up, and then the bottom part here you can zip tie it back up to this harness here. And don't forget, on your snorkel here you have this little hose that goes in the back there that pushes into the snorkel. Be sure to reconnect it. Once you're done with that, go ahead and reconnect your computer. You got these three connectors right here that just go up in place, and the little levers push in, and as they push in they reconnect the computer. I'll show you a little demonstration here. Just push it up like that and push it in, give it a little tug, and you know that's connected and secure. Do the same thing with the remaining two there. And then you got this wire here going to this connector for the evap purge valve. Be sure to reconnect it. Once that's done, just go ahead and reconnect your negative battery clamp, tighten it up to spec, and you're good to go. That's pretty much it. Well folks, that is it, and by far the biggest pain in the butt on this project is taking the intake manifold off and putting it back on. Other than that, it's very straightforward. Guys, if you have any questions, please comment down below. I'll be happy to get to you whenever I can. Also, please read the entire description down below this video before you attempt this or apply any of this knowledge. There's more very important information down there that you need to know before you attempt this. Please read that. I'll also have a little disclaimer at the end, so check that out, guys. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe.